My fellow Americans, I'm pleased to tell you today that I've signed legislation that will outlaw Russia forever. We begin bombing in 5 minutes.
It is essential that our team learns to work with our new recruit, not against him.
I'm a geek, walking down the street.
Check the computer.
The mainframe computer. I access the mainframe.
At the end of this day, one shall stand, one shall fall. Time to find out.
Welcome to Basically a Geek Show. Here are your hosts, Mike and Jack.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 34 of Basically a Geek Show. We are 24 hours removed from one of the greatest baseball games of all time, but we're not going to talk about that at all.
Thank fuck.
It was a really good game.
There's no such thing.
Okay. Well, let's jump right into what we are going to talk about. At Basically a Geek Show, there are a few discussion points we like to avoid, politics being one, religion being another. You know, it is our belief that these are deeply personal issues and that as a result, people rightfully tend to get really riled up about them, and we don't see the need to provoke that sort of discussion if it's not needed.
Though I think our long-term listeners probably have an idea of where you and I sit on the political front, at least. It slips out from time to time.
But unchristian
giggity.
But you know, we're going to talk about Christian Bale because this is a double whammy. I mean, his name is Christian, and he is playing Moses.
Yeah, and this, now granted, I mean, this particular movie, the subject matter, there's nothing geeky about it, really. I guess our tenuous line on this is that Christian Bale played Batman. I don't know. Honestly, to be very honest with you guys, it's a slow fucking news week, and this just seems kind of lulzy to us. So we wanted to talk about it.
Well, the movie is called Gods and Kings.
Yes, which is also a Civ 5 expansion pack. Wonder if there should be like a game tie-in.
This movie looks awesome.
It's a modern take on the biblical epic genre, which, I mean, I'm glad to see that come back. I mean, I grew up watching a lot of those. Well, the obvious, they were kind of cool.
The obvious comparison is going to be to Ten Commandments.
Yeah, in which Charlton Heston fought away the slime from Ghostbusters with an AK-47.
Is that how you remember that movie happening?
Yes.
So, I mean, this looks. First of all, the poster. I think everything that you really need to know about this movie comes to the poster. And the poster itself looks very 300-esque.
This is Israel!
Well, you've got first of all, you've got a shot of Christian Bale, presumably as Moses, I'll get back to that, and Joel Edgerton as Ramses II, who is generally agreed to be the Pharaoh referenced in the Exodus story. But it's all done.
I didn't check. Do they have him bald like Yul Brynner was?
Yeah, he's bald.
Nice.
But they've got them, and they're both in front of a pyramid. But here's the thing: everything is everything's in black and white, except for bits of their armor and weapons, which are picked out in gold. It's got a really stylized 300 look to it, and the reason why I think that's awesome is because when you think, epic battle, epic ancient battle movie, the Book of Exodus really doesn't come to mind. There's not a battle. There's no battle in the Book of Exodus.
I mean, if anything, if you had to tie it into like any kind of genre, I mean, at best it would be like a covert ops extraction. I don't know. Tonight we dine in Israel.
Well,
40 years later.
I think the Israeli extraction of Ethiopian Jews from Ethiopia to Israel might have been named like Exodus, like the code name for the operation, but I'm not sure about that.
Maybe they got him confused. I mean,
well, it's just hilarious because it's like, okay. Also in this poster, Christian Bale is wearing armor and has a sword. And he's playing Moses. Now, I'm not sure, I can't speak for everyone here, but this isn't exactly the image that comes to mind when I think of Moses.
It's really not. I mean, you know, this movie looks like it could be pretty cool. I mean, and I just mean that cool as a movie. I think, I don't know, some of the more literal types in the Christian Judeo community, because I mean, those of a Christian upbringing, yes, Moses is a big deal. If you're Jewish, Moses is a bigger deal.
Yeah, but I think the common image of Moses among both those religions is kind of like old guy, beard, robe, staff. And here we got, you know, Christian
Bruce
Bale, who's, you know, pretty young guy, you know, in battle armor with a sword, a short beard, short hair. It just looks hilarious.
I think this is going to be a movie that is probably going to be maybe fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's going to, cause like, you know, the biblical epics of yore, at least tried to have some semblance of biblical accuracy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this is really, overly concerned with such things.
No. It looks like it looks like they're using, you know, the story of Moses, the Book of Exodus, as sort of a basis to do their own sort of 300 movie, is what it looks like.
Yeah, which, I mean, I guess just from okay, if you don't have a Christian Judeo background, or you're not particularly religious or don't care, then you can probably look at this and say, well, they did the same thing with the Battle of Thermopylae and 300, and this is just that applied to a different event. I don't know how many toes this movie is going to step on. Me personally, I'll go ahead and come out there. I mean, I don't consider myself a religious person. I don't practice any form of, you know, dogmatic rites or anything like that. I do have elements of my personal background in my current philosophy. I'll just put that out there and just say that much. Am I offended? No. Because, I don't know. I think when it comes to things like this, you just gotta take it and just say, well, you know, it's not meant to be an inspirational religious piece. I mean, I think hopefully I'm going to go out on a limb here. And I'm going to say that I think the moment you see this movie poster, that should be driven home.
Oh, John Turturro's in it.
Who's that again?
John Turturro, Agent Simmons from the first 3 Transformers movies.
Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord.
He's going to be playing Seti the First, who was the father of Ramses the Second.
I don't know. I mean, I like it. I mean, I loved him in the Transformers movies. He's one of my favorite characters.
He should just play ancient Egyptian version of Simmons.
Yes. Yes. Where are the glasses? Yeah.
I don't know. It's like Christian Bale it's like this movie, this poster basically says, come see Christian Bale as Battle Moses.
Yeah, Battle Moses.
There's
I'm the hero you deserve, just not the one you need right now.
I want to see that scene in like the streets of streets of some ancient Egyptian city, and it's at night, and like these Egyptian soldiers are being terrified, and there's just one alone. He cries out, "Who are you?" And
I'm Moses.
Christian Bale emerges from the shadows. I'm Moses.
Picks the pharaoh up by the fucking collar plate. Where are the drugs?
Where are the Jews?
Yeah. Oh man. Like I say, it looks like it's going to be cool. It's one of those things that you kind of don't know what to make of it. Like,
well, it's interesting. I'm looking at this cast list, and I don't see anyone playing Aaron, who is Moses' brother, and who has actually a pretty big role in the Exodus plot.
Yeah, but he was always the Robin to Moses' Batman.
Yes, but Aaron was the first high priest of Israel, so...
Well, you know, I something tells me, again, like I said, I don't think the guys making this movie were overly concerned with biblical accuracy, sir. I really don't. Like, hey, no, someone gave me this really cool book. It's got, like, sex and fights and all that shit. We gotta make a movie adaptation of at least some of this. I mean, this is great. And the probably coked up executive just flings this massive Bible down on the desk. Bob, that's a Bible. Oh, I thought it was pronounced Bibli. And, it just kind of went from there. And I like to think the executive proposing this is probably like someone's son-in-law or something like that.
They're like, God damn it, Terry.
Yeah, he's there just so that the father-in-law can keep an eye on him to make sure he doesn't break his DUI probation.
I don't know. I look forward to this. This should be fun.
Doing this, I wish they would have at least just gone whole hog and just actually had a cinematic enactment of the Family Guy skit where Jesus and Moses fight off the Romans with AK-47s.
I don't think this is going to be that far off.
It doesn't look like it will be. That's what I'm saying. Let's just commit ourselves fully to the bastardization of one of the holiest books on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just do this. I mean, don't take me on a halfway journey, gentlemen. Take me all the way.
Okay, so the movie isn't out yet, but there are set photos and promotional photos on the IMDb page. So this is a shot of Christian Bale as Moses from the film.
Okay.
Well, actually, no, that's a link to the image page. I'm not sure what image it's going to take you to.
Fist pump Moses.
Yes, fist pump Moses.
That right there is so being used for an action figure. And he's going to have like some kind of fucking like battle staff.
Well, if you go through it, you can see some more. You can see some more pictures. This looks.
And as a caveat and a disclaimer, we're not making fun of anything in the actual Bible or anyone's, holy. We're making fun of the movie here. Uh-huh. So please take everything that we're saying in that context. Because when you talk about this kind of stuff, you kind of need the disclaimer. So we'll put that out there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I see now like a fist pump Moses action figure with like the battle staff. And like when his fist goes down and the staff like hits the ground, they have it to where it just kind of like segments into like this half-ass looking like plastic amalgamation of a snake.
There's the scene, if you go through them, there's a scene where it looks like Christian Bale and he's holding a bow and arrow.
Oh, so we're getting some Robin Hood up in here too.
It's like Moses, and he's got this bow and arrow, and yeah, there's scenes of a battle in this, and like I don't.
Yeah, I just seen that, and there's. Is that the Alliance flag that they're flying?
What? No, you talk?
I see. They have like blue and gold standards.
Oh, yeah. But,
For Stormwind!
I don't know, there's shots of, like, a battle, like, I don't know what's going on, like, at least people are realizing that there is no battle in the story of Moses, like, there is no big climactic battle.
Now, we all know the story of Exodus is when King Ren ordered Stormwind to invade Egypt to get the Jews out of the pyramids. Because the orcs were building a new Black Rock Mountain underneath one of them.
This just looks absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, this is going to be, well, like we said at the beginning, pretty damn lolsy.
Like Ben Kingsley is going to be in this movie as well. So,
oh, that is awesome. I hope he's the Mandarin.
No. Well, here's what I hope. I hope he's playing Trevor Slattery, playing a character in the movie.
Nice. Moses kicks down the door with, like, the new patented power kick option available in a separate figure. Parents, buy it now. And
Moses with power kick action.
Yeah. And Slattery's just, like, fucking balled up in a corner in a puddle of his own piss and booze and vomit. Don't hurt me! This is all just a terrible misunderstanding, you see. They have wonderful wine, and I have room and board. I'm just an actor. Don't persecute me for my art.
Yeah, this movie, I just can't get over this. Like, the poster is Moses in battle armor. And again, it's not even like what we think of as Moses. It's just like Christian Bale as Moses.
This is going to be some kind of a unholy hybrid of like 300, and if I had to peg another movie for this to be the progeny of, I would say the Robin Hood movie with what the fuck?
Russell Crowe?
Russell Crowe. I don't know why his name was slipping in my mind, but yeah, Russell Crowe. The one that you love so much.
See, here's the thing. That movie pissed all over any aspect of historical accuracy, to which point a lot of people were saying, it's Robin Hood. What does it matter? To which point I'd respond, it really doesn't, except that they tried to make it. You know, you can't say, you can't say, oh, it's just Robin Hood, when the whole point of the movie is trying to tie Robin Hood into an actual historical event, that being the signing of the Magna Carta. And, the way that they handled that was just stupid and inept and absolutely ridiculous. But the one thing, two things that movie got right. Well, it was really two things, depending on how you want to look at it. That movie really kind of nailed the depiction of Richard I, aka Richard the Lionhearted, and his brother King John. Like, in terms of kind of capturing the historical personalities of those two, the movie was actually pretty good. And I'd almost say that movie is worth it just for that alone, but the Robin Hood stuff, it misses the point on, and the Magna Carta stuff, it really misses the point on. But, in terms of Richard the Lionheart and King John, it's pretty good.
Were you there at the signing of the Magna Carta?
I was not, no.
So you don't know who the fuck signed it?
I know who signed it, and I know who wrote it.
Bullshit. I call bullshit. You weren't there, sir. You weren't there.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't Robin Hood.
You know what? You people and your fucking fancy degrees.
With your facts and your...
Yeah, and the fucking shit, and you know what? You weren't there, sir. This is the most outrageous thing you've said since your unwarranted hatred of the Belgian people.
I just
You're a vicious, fact-mongering racist.
Again, it's... And that movie just kind of dropped the ball entirely, because okay, the Sheriff of Nottingham was in that movie, but it wasn't Alan Rickman.
Well, now that one I'll give you. Alan Rickman or GTFO on that front.
I think that would actually be interesting.
Cancel Christmas!
I think that would actually be interesting. Russell Crowe's Robin Hood against Alan Rickman's Sheriff of Nottingham. But, yeah, just the way that they handled that. That movie pissed me off. Except, again, for the depictions of Richard Lionheart King John. Those were good. They really kind of got down the petulant and competent nature of King John, which I approved of.
You know, there's actually another possible outcome for how members of the religious community will receive this movie. Especially down here in the South.
Okay.
Well, you know, maybe I'm thinking about this all wrong. I'm thinking that, you know, a lot of the more literal people will be upset that so many facts are just, or at least, if not facts and at least interpretations, are just being dragged through the mud. But, you know, maybe a lot of people will see Moses running around swinging a sword and be like, hell yeah!
You know, I'm curious to see if there's going to be an action figure tie-in.
If not, there really needs to be. I bet you there'll probably be a video game tie-in.
I want to see the commercials for, like, Battle Sword Moses or something.
Oh, yeah. It's gotta happen.
Mm-hmm. But, you know, this should be hilarious.
They could have, like, a separate Moses action figure for each of the plagues.
Well, I'm wondering how that's gonna work. Like, I don't know what this movie's direction is gonna be. Like, it just seems so ridiculous.
I mean, this could be one of those cases where, you know, the movie poster has nothing whatsoever to do with the actual tone of the movie. It happens with, you know, alarming regularity. I mean, this could be one of those cases. I mean, I haven't seen any, like, trailer footage or anything like that. But, yeah, I mean, it could be one of those cases. Whatever will be, I feel safely wager that it's going to be interesting. If nothing else, it'll be interesting. I'll see it. I'll definitely see it. If nothing else, and out of curiosity.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Now, I'm definitely gonna watch it. Really more curious than anything else. Again, I'm wondering how they're gonna work in this grand battle with Moses, considering it's actually not in the story of Moses, in the story of the Exodus. Like, the Pharaoh assembles an army, but, you know, the Jews don't fight it. It gets drowned in the Red Sea. So, like, I don't know, Christian Bale, I hope he does his grovelly Batman voice the whole movie, too.
I'm pretty sure you're going to at least hear elements of it. It seems like he's kind of lost the ability to do anything else.
He did it the entire time through Terminator Salvation.
Yeah, but I kind of liked it. I still say I liked that movie. I found it to be, as a far cry from Terminator 3, I tell you that much. That movie was a piece of ass. Even by my standards, and we all know what those are like.
Indeed. Well, moving on to some more movie news. Got some set photos from Batman v Superman.
Indeed. And this isn't necessarily going to be one of those instances of us just using whatever evidence we come across to write this movie. This is actually just general info. They released some set photos that evidently show people protesting against Superman.
Indeed, which, you know, is... I actually don't think that's the worst idea.
No, I mean, he did kind of level half of a fucking city. Godzilla himself probably could not have done a better job.
Exactly. It's sort of like... It's sort of like in the aftermath of Man of Steel, and this is in continuity. Man of Steel did kick off this new unified DC film universe, so that movie is canon. But in that movie, Superman kills Zod, but he takes down half of Metropolis doing it.
And I mean,
I think someone, I saw the graphics somewhere, but basically, and I might be remembering it wrong, but I think someone calculated by what we see on screen, if you compare the number of dead to the amount of money lost in damages, that Superman's effect on Metropolis was around equal to that of one of the atomic bombs dropped on Japan at the end of World War II.
Yeah, and I mean, not even that. I mean, okay, yeah, the economic cost, because I mean, okay, all of these buildings were insured, probably by the same fucking company. These massive insurance conglomerates, I mean, there aren't many of them. I mean, like, what if this happened in real life and, like, fucking, you have, like, Allstate and AIG or whoever the fuck. I mean, the payout, they wouldn't be able to pay. I mean, you've seen it in real life with Hurricane Katrina. There were so many, insurance claims that a lot of the insurance companies began to financially struggle, and payouts took so fucking long to some of those people. And I mean, you would see that here. The economic impact alone, just the loss of life aside, because you really can't hardly quantify the death count in the movie. Though in the movie, I mean, it would appear to have been, I would say, in the thousands.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just based on the level of destruction, maybe even tens of thousands. I mean, half of that fucking city was leveled.
Yeah,
it was fucking spectacular. I loved it. It's one thing I really liked about that movie.
I like one of the signs that say "Thanks for the help" with help in quotation marks.
Well, like I was saying before we started recording, I would have loved to have like snuck onto the set as one of the extras, and just held up a sign that just said "Superman's a douche, LOL."
Oh yeah, no. This makes sense. It makes sense from in story narrative perspective. Superman did level half that city, but at the same time, I'm not sure where they're going with this necessarily, because you have Batman versus Superman. I mean, you'd think that the natural dynamic would be Batman is in the shadows, maybe Batman's the unpopular one, and Superman is truth, justice, and the American way.
Yeah, well, I mean, okay, in this case, from a standpoint of, I actually agree with Superman's actions in the movie. Okay, what's better? Half a city gets leveled or the entire planet destroyed? Okay, sorry, half of Metropolis, but yeah, we gotta lose you. I mean, I think as much as I hate to actually defend Superman, maybe his tactics could have been a little less grandiose, but then again, Zod's certainly weren't going to be, so I don't think it was avoidable. And he did the right thing. And of course, people are always ungrateful snots anyhow. So of course I'm like, my home's destroyed. But your planet's not. I'm sorry, but your planet's not destroyed. Thank the man. Or whatever the hell he is.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, it's one of these things where I can appreciate the fact that it makes sense from a narrative standpoint, but in terms of the themes going on, I'm not sure how this is going to fit into the Batman v Superman dynamic, because again, I would think the logical thing would be to make Superman the beloved public figure and Batman sort of the vigilante in the shadows kind of guy, but...
Well, you gotta keep in mind though how they kind of, as I recall, and it's been, a while since I've seen Man of Steel, but Superman wasn't exactly loved by the police either, and probably even less so now. And as it was kind of mentioned in what we've read, it could be that Batman sees Superman as just like this menace, who, while he may, kind of understand what happened and why, still think, hey, it's best if this guy's not around. and, you know, kind of act in that way, like, okay, I'm the only one who can fucking clean this shit up, and kind of be operating on that, perhaps. And that would kind of make sense.
Yeah, but unfortunately, real Batman's playing Moses, and we're stuck with Ben Affleck, so.
Well, you know, Batman's a Time Lord. Batman is a Time Lord, and it actually is going to be Batman going back to ancient Egypt.
God, Batman's
Where
a
are
time...
the Jews?
Batman's a Time Lord.
You heard it here, ladies and gentlemen.
Batman's a Time Lord. So what does that make the George Clooney years?
That would be akin to maybe like, I'm trying to get my numbers of the Doctor straight, the Sixth Doctor.
What, with the code?
That broke my TV?
Yeah, that would be the Sixth Doctor.
Yes, that would be the Batman equivalent of the Sixth Doctor with the fucking Technicolor Dream Code.
Well, I'm actually going to go slightly off of the game plan for a second, because this story did pop up, and I figured it would be worth a mention.
Okay.
We've got some releases from Star Wars Episode 7, Chrome Stormtroopers.
Okay. Hold on, I'm waiting. There we go. I wouldn't say chrome. He looks white and blue to me.
No. That's an image from the prequel. Scroll down.
Okay. Yeah. No, I get you. Kind of cool, actually. Weird, but cool.
Mm-hmm. But I don't know. It's interesting. Like, of course, the obvious question would be how are stormtroopers going to work into all of this, seeing as the Empire was noticeably destroyed?
Well, okay. I mean, it'd be kind of like, okay, real life analogy. U.S. goes into Iraq, decapitates the government. That doesn't mean there's no resistance left.
Mm-hmm.
For all we know, I mean, that could have been like the end of Return of the Jedi could have been the equivalent of George Bush being on the aircraft carrier with the mission accomplished banner. The war could have gone on for years after that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, pockets of the Empire, you know, saying, well, the Emperor's dead, so, and you have internal struggles, maybe factions trying to claim the seat of Emperor, perhaps to, you know, resurrect the Empire or you know, cauterize the wound, so to speak. Lots of things you could do with that.
I don't know. Palpatine or GTFO?
Oh, I mean, I agree, but I'm just saying from a narrative standpoint, I mean, that could easily be done and it would be realistic.
Yeah, it would be, yeah, but I don't know. I just thought like the chrome stormtroopers are interesting because this looks like an entirely new look. I'm just curious as to how they're going to fit into the narrative is all.
I think that might be reading a bit too much into it.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps it could just be, hey, we want to make them look different. Here, they are now different.
Yeah,
carry on.
Very possible.
I tend to find, and this is kind of like my World of Warcraft experience coming in, where the fans think more about the nuance of these things than the people who actually fucking make them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, you know, the WoW example again, people asking Chris Metzen, well, what about this? And, you know, insert obscure fact from lore here. And he's like, dude, I have no fucking clue. I was high on PCP when I wrote that shit. You know, they don't, half the time, they don't remember it. So, kind of the same thing with this. You know, I don't, anymore when it comes to things like this, I don't always assume that the people making it know as much as the fans do.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. It could, I mean, there could be an interesting narrative behind it. Hopefully there is, but not necessarily.
I've gotcha. So, let's switch gears here. Let's go back to Transformers. Longtime staple of the show.
Yes. Now, can you contain your erection long enough to complete this segment?
Yes.
Are you sure?
I can.
Okay.
So I picked up 2 figures, and I figured I'd talk a bit about them on the show, give people my general thoughts on them. I picked up Leader Class Generations Jetfire.
Dun dun dun.
Which is a Leader Class version of G1 Jetfire. And, of course, I picked up Deluxe Windblade. Windblade being the quote-unquote fan-created bot from about a year back. And so, well, that was revealed about a year back, so I saw those 2, figured I'd pick them up. A lot of hype about Windblade, specifically the fact that she was fan-created and the fact that she's gotten a comic series that honestly is pretty good. The Windblade comic series has received much acclaim. So between those 2, curiosities, I figured I'd pick the toy up, and I'll start with Windblade. Windblade, the character's gotten a lot of love from the comics, but the toy kind of sucks.
Yeah, now, when we seen the pictures, because I believe we discussed the pictures on the show, probably a couple months ago or whatever, and we said that I recall it looking very dilapidated, kind of flimsy, and it seemed to be obviously mistransformed. Because, like, her fucking shoulders were down, like, her shoulders were parallel with her tits.
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, no, that was definitely a mistransformation. The robot mode looks pretty good when it's properly transformed. The problem isn't the way the robot mode looks. If you get it properly transformed, it looks great. The problem is that it's very finicky. Windblade has a very slender robot mode, and as a result, a lot of the pieces seem very finicky, very small. And even if you just have her in robot mode, trying to get her into to stay in any one position is tough, because the way that her legs work is that her heels spin around from jet mode, and you sort of deploy sort of the second heel to sort of act as this hidden balancing instrument. It's a way to help her balance, because they've given her sort of stiletto legs. So you've kind of got this third hidden heel in there in the middle of the leg. The problem is that, like, the leg setup doesn't really lock into place in robot mode. Like, you put it all in position, and it holds its position well enough, but if you as you're trying to pose it, and not even posing it in any, overly complex poses, just like getting her to stand still, more or less, is tricky, because that setup is always moving around, and the heel, the third heel, which is essential to balancing the figure, in particular, seems just a bit too loose and tends to fold back up on its own accord if you're not careful. So balancing her is tricky. Her wings, which sort of form the back of her shoulders in robot mode, and her arms, again, are very slender. Lots of tiny pieces that, again, don't lock into place. So everything always sort of feels like it's moving even when you don't want it to move.
So if I could say I'm detecting an overall theme here, I would say it would be flimsy.
Flimsy, yeah. It's a weird type of flimsy, though, because it's not just the joints are loose. It's like even when the joints are sufficiently tight, it's just that the way the figure is designed, it seems flimsy even then, because nothing really locks in place. Like you transform it properly and you put all the pieces where they're supposed to go in robot mode, but nothing locks in place, really. Nothing a few tabs here and there to lock a few pieces in place would really make the thing feel more secure, but those aren't there. And transforming her into jet mode is a huge hassle because it's just this jumble of very small, kind of loose parts that you're trying to line up perfectly right. And there are tabs in jet mode to lock everything in place, and the jet mode is fairly decent once you lock everything in place. Once you get it solidly locked in place, the jet mode's not bad. But it's getting to that point that's a problem because, again, you've got all these tiny, flimsy pieces that you're trying to all kind of force into place at once. And you're liable to just knock half the figure out of alignment trying to get the other half into alignment. The jet mode's not bad, but even when you get it locked into place, there are still gaps in the jet mode. Like down the middle back of the jet, there's a gap that it tries to fill in by having her scabbard for her sword plug in there, and that's supposed to fill in that part of it, and it kind of works as a visual cheat from some angles, but for most angles it kind of doesn't. For whatever you think of the Windblade character from the comics, which seems to have been fairly well received, the toy really doesn't do it for me personally.
So basically, I guess what you're probably saying is, if you're just kind of a casual collector who just likes to get new bots as they pop in the stores, maybe consider giving this one, just passing on it and not bothering.
Yeah.
Only basically if you're a hardcore Windblade fan and don't plan on actually, transforming it, maybe.
Yeah, if you can, the big thing is, it's kind of a shame that I'd say, probably pass this one up because it is the fan-created bot, and that was a very interesting experiment that they did there. And for this to kind of turn out not so great, it is disappointing. If you're either a Windblade fan or the novelty of the fan-made bot is enough for you to want to get her, my suggestion would be get her, maybe transform her once or twice just to sort of check out the jet mode, then transform her once again into robot mode, get her just right, put her on your shelf to display, force her into a pose that actually works, and then just kind of step away slowly, because that's going to be as good as that figure looks. Because, again, very finicky. Very, very finicky. The other end of the spectrum is Jetfire, who is awesome. Now, again, this figure was a very pleasant surprise because they did a Classics version of Jetfire back when the Generations Classics line first began back in 2006. There was a Voyager-sized Jetfire figure as part of that line, and at the time, I thought that was as good a Jetfire figure as we were ever going to get. It was perfect. It had detachable boosters, it had detachable arm cannons, it had a helmet so you could go with either the toy-accurate Robotech head or the cartoon-accurate, more G1 Transformer-y head. It was just a really good toy, and I figured, you know what, that's probably as good as Jetfire's ever going to get. And then they come out with this toy. As a Jetfire fan, I loved the pictures of it, and then I was so pleasantly surprised when I found him at retail, picked him up, and yeah, he's awesome. He is everything that Voyager toy from 2006 was, but just improved immensely. The big thing is that, yes, the head gimmick, the mask gimmick from the Voyager toy remains. It's slightly different. On the Voyager toy, it was a full helmet that you put over the standard head was the cartoon head, and the helmet was the toy-accurate head from G1. And you just slid that over. Here, it's not so much a full helmet. It's like the base of the head is the cartoon-accurate head, and then he's sort of got like this mask that replicates the toy head from G1, and you just slide that over. So it's not a full helmet, but it's still the same basic idea.
Right.
So that's neat. In terms of the toy, I'd actually say body-wise, he's pretty much, and this is where I think it improves significantly over the Voyager toy. The Voyager toy from 2006 attempted to basically merge the cartoon jet mode with the toy jet mode, and they were two very different aesthetics. The toy jet mode was very sleek, and the cartoon jet mode for Jetfire was very boxy.
Mm-hmm.
And the Voyager version tried to sort of merge those two aesthetics in the jet mode, and it doesn't look bad by any stretch of the imagination, but this toy just does it so much better. Because his jet mode is a dead ringer for the toy's jet mode. It is this really sleek, semi-futuristic looking fighter jet with big red boosters on the back. It looks absolutely awesome in jet mode. It looks so I can only describe it. It's just perfect. It is the perfect homage to the Jetfire toy from G1.
And they managed to do it without any lawsuits from those little piss ants over at Harmony Gold.
Well, Harmony Gold lost all the rights to complain about that. They sued Hasbro actually over a Jetfire G.I. Joe exclusive.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, at San Diego Comic-Con, I think it was last year, not the one that happened, the 2013 edition of the show. They had a G.I. Joe jet that was done up in Jetfire colors, and Harmony Gold sued them over it, and the court sided with Hasbro, so Harmony Gold, can piss up a rope on that one. But, yeah, the jet mode is really nice, and the jet mode's awesome because, if you are a Robotech / Macross fan, then, this is a really good representation of the classic 80s, Robotech, Macross jet design. Robot mode is where it gets interesting because while the jet mode is a dead ringer for the jet mode of the G1 toy, the robot mode is a dead ringer for the robot mode of the G1 cartoon robot mode. So it's really interesting how they've taken this really boxy robot mode from the cartoon, and then they've managed to pull it off, making him transform into that sort of sleek, streamlined toy jet. But, yeah, so it's really cool. So if you have the mask on him, if you keep the mask on him, he's basically cartoon robot Jetfire with toy robot Jetfire's head. But it works. It works. It's a really nice melding of two aesthetics, and whereas the Voyager from 2006 tried to sort of meld the two aesthetics into one, this one just sort of finds a way to really effectively give each side of the toy, an effective homage to different parts of the original design. So, just on that front, I'm a fan, and he's just fun overall. Leader toys are kind of tricky. When leader toys have finally gotten back to where they should be, in my opinion, with Jetfire, because leader toys started off perfectly in the Cybertron line as just these really big, fun toys of Optimus Prime and Megatron from the Cybertron line. Then the movies came out, and the leader toys kind of got a reputation in the movie line as being sort of overly complex, huge things that were impossible to transform. Again, it took me something like 6 years to actually transform Revenge of the Fallen Optimus Prime, the leader toy of that, correctly. Oh, now, so basically, I guess what you're saying here is, because I know you were incredibly fucking stoked about this thing,
and damn near had a conniption fit when you first seen it. Mm-hmm. So it does live up to the expectation and what you built it up to be.
It does, yeah. It's a leader toy. It's got the proper sort of leader size to him. He's got the size to fill out the price point. He's got an interesting transformation, does a lot of neat things. It's not overly complex. Again, they kind of got back to what leaders should have been. The movie leader toys got a bit heavy on the complexity side. Again, Revenge of the Fallen Leader Prime being an example. Yeah. Dark of the Moon Leader Sentinel Prime. I never got that toy, but from what I've heard, that figure was a pain in the ass to transform too. This is simple, and a lot of people might not like that, saying, "Oh, they're paying all this money for a leader toy. They want it to be, they want that complexity somewhere." And it's not a simple toy. It doesn't. It's not overly dumbed down, but it's just. It's just right for its size, and I like that. So he's everything I wanted. He's got good size to him, good transformation, complexity, but doesn't go overboard. Homages the original character, both his toy and his cartoon character model, very well. The only real downside is the chrome. Hasbro's been on this chrome kick lately where they've been chroming a bunch of their figures unnecessarily, I think. In Jetfire's case, his boosters are chrome, his handgun is chrome, and his cannons and his arm cannons are chrome. And they're all red chrome. And it doesn't look bad, per se, but it's chrome, so it chips a bit. And not in any, huge way, but just a few nicks here and there that, would just be avoidable. This was just standard red plastic.
Right.
And they've gone on record saying that they like to do chrome because they think that chrome makes it look more high-end. I always kind of thought it just looked gaudy. But whatever.
The thing is, how high-end does it look, though, in a year or so even, when a lot of that chrome was fucking flaked off?
Yeah, I don't know. They said that they've gotten that, their chroming technology has improved so that it won't be as flaky. I guess we'll see. It doesn't seem too bad on this guy so far, but yeah, that would be my one complaint. Otherwise, absolutely perfect. I couldn't be happier with Leader Jetfire. And it actually makes me look forward, even more so, to Leader Megatron that's coming out. Because, if this guy and Megatron were sort of designed with the same kind of, I guess, principles in mind, then the G1 Leader Megatron that's coming out, should be pretty awesome. I look forward to it.
Good. I've been kind of grouchy about what they've been doing with the leader classes lately because they don't really look, they look a lot smaller than they should have been, and, bad economy, expensive plastic, dirt. Yeah, fuck you. So yeah, it's good to see at least a temporary departure from that nonsense.
The leader, if there is an economy impact on this guy, it's probably in his complexity. Like I said, some people would probably find him not as complex as they would have liked for a leader toy. And again, the whole thing of complexity comes down to parts count, which does tie into the economy, the economic side of designing a toy. But in terms of size, Jetfire fills out quite nicely. So if the trade-off on the economy side of things is we can make them big but just less complex, then I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think if anything they've gotten a little bit too complex. Like I've said on previous shows, I would like for them to reach this point to where they're not overly complex, but they're not, one pump chumps either. I thought G1, the G1 figures struck a fairly good balance on that. They were simple. Very simple, but they weren't, insultingly simple. Mm-hmm. So I would actually kind of like to see a return to that.
Well, Jetfire's kind of got a bit of that. he's another minor drawback is that when you transform him, basically you've got to fold his chest into the undercarriage of the jet mode.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that you have to do it, like the instructions are actually pretty clear on what you have to do. But then you kind of push that piece in the direction that it's supposed to go, and it feels like you're going to break it if you push it much further.
Right.
And you're like, oh God, I'm not supposed to do it, but then you can't figure out any other way to do it, so then you just sort of, pray to God and push it and hope you don't break your expensive leader class toy you just bought.
Right, yeah.
But if you just apply pressure to the point that you do feel like you're going to break it, then it actually will slide into place perfectly where it's supposed to go. But it's just one of those things where it's like, Hasbro, you could have made that just a bit looser so I didn't feel like I was breaking the damn thing. But that is the way you're supposed to transform it, so. Just sort of an FYI on that point if anyone picks him up. If you're folding his chest into his jet mode undercarriage, don't be too terribly concerned if you feel like you're going to break the toy, because that's actually how it's supposed to work. But yeah,
gotcha.
I approve. Again, I absolutely loved the 2006 Voyager version. I thought that was as good as it was going to get, and I was completely content with that. But then they outdid themselves, so good on them.
Good, I'm really, really looking forward to that Megatron. Both of them actually, the G1 style and the Armada style.
See, that's the thing. Like, I gotta get the G1 version because it's been so long since we've gotten a properly G1 designed Megatron.
Oh yeah, I mean that would be the one I'd get first.
But at the same time, I loved Armada, and Armada was a big part of my childhood.
Yeah.
So it's like, if I see that Armada variant of it, that's good. Like, if I have the money on me, that's going to be a hard pass. It's going to be hard to pass up on that. I don't think I could do it. But then I'll be stuck with this leader class Armada Megatron that I really don't have a place for.
Yeah, I liked, Armada Megatron, the Armada series, I was an adult when that came out. So it really wasn't part of my childhood, though passive-aggressive guilt was. So maybe we could get like a passive-aggressive guilt Megatron. Like you'd hit a button and it would say, one day I'll be dead and you'll be sorry.
Yeah.
Parents would be like, finally a toy I can be happy with my child playing with.
Yeah, no, it's Megatron should be fun. I look forward to that. But kind of keeping on that sort of discussion train, let's talk about RID toys. We saw a few leaks of the new Robots in Disguise toy line at San Diego Comic-Con. Well, not leaks, they were officially unveiled. But we saw a few of those figures. I think we saw the Legends class, Prime, and Strong Arm. And then we saw the Deluxe class, Bumblebee. And then we saw a bunch of those one-step transformation figures that they're going to throw in there too. But that was pretty much it. Apparently now we've gotten our first look at what could be Grimlock.
I say it's Godzilla.
It does look a lot like Godzilla, yes. But this does sort of fit in with it. I mean, okay, when the very first press releases about the new Robots in Disguise show were announced, they did mention that a Dinobot would be part of the team. And Here we've got pictures of what looks to be, I guess, a Voyager-sized Robots in Disguise Grimlock. It sort of fits in, the aesthetic sort of fits into that Prime Robots in Disguise aesthetic.
Yeah, the art style seems to be like this hybrid of Prime and animated. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at this Grimlock's chin, and I'm definitely seeing some animated influence, but it's not so overbearing as to be offensive.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I mean, it's an unpainted prototype. Looks like it's just like fucking blue.
It looks like bluish gray. Yeah,
bluish gray kind of a color. But I like it. the picture of the figure has the Grimlock figure with its head tilted back, mouth agape, roaring presumably, and there's like kind of this doofy looking gap in the neck. But I'm thinking, because the picture is of the figure in someone's hand, and it looks like they might be activating some kind of like roaring gimmick. Mm-hmm. So maybe that's just, that gap is just there from like the way the head moves with that gimmick. I don't know.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Like, everything about this makes sense. Again, we knew that a Dinobot would be part of the Transformers Robots in Disguise lineup. And, you know, here's Grimlock, who easily fills that role, and the last Transformers live-action film featured Grimlock. Not as prominently as the promotional material made him out to be, but he was still in there, and he was still featured heavily in that promotional material. So I could see sort of like the corporate side of things going like, well, in our movie we had Grimlock, and, you know, everyone saw the fucking movie, so maybe we should put him in the new cartoon that follows the movie. Sort of, you know, get that brand synergy firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, and they're really big on this whole brand synergy shit these days. But in this particular case, it's not bad. I think the figure looks pretty good. You know,
yeah,
I like it.
I'm interested in seeing more of it and seeing if they'll do like a green repaint of it at some point. Because, you know, just run with that Godzilla homage, I guess.
Godzilla's not green, though. Godzilla's never really been green.
Godzilla's green.
Godzilla is... There was like maybe 2 movies from like the early 60s.
You go out, ask 10 people randomly on the street.
I don't care what 10 people randomly on the street say.
What color is Godzilla? Guarantee you, 10 out of 10 say green.
And they'll be wrong. They would be wrong and woefully uninformed and quite potentially chromosomally deficient.
Godzilla's green.
Objectively, he is not green, Mike.
Fucking green.
Where? When? How?
All of the things that he's in.
I need another drink.
So, you know, let's talk a bit, actually. Not sort of, I don't want to call it a new segment, because it's one of those things that we're just going to try out once, see how it goes, and if we like how it plays, we'll, you know, keep doing it. But this is just going to be a general, you know, Jack and I bullshitting hour. And we're going to talk about, well, overrated movies. Bad movie public defender is sort of the thing that Jack does, where he defends what he feels to be underrated movies and overly maligned movies. And now we're, you know, this isn't going to be anything like that. That's more of an argumentative segment where he and I kind of go back and forth. This is going to be more of just talking about overrated films in general.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know if this is going to be something we're going to do again or what, but let's give it a go, I guess. Okay, you talk about overrated movies, and the first thing that comes to mind that I don't think that can be avoided is Citizen Kane.
Yeah. I've ranted about this fucking movie for years, before you and I even met, long before you and I even met. You know, my mother was big into movies, and she had me watch a lot of these quote-unquote classics. And more often than not, I just kept finding myself being disappointed. Citizen Kane really stood out as just boring as fuck.
I never had a chance with Citizen Kane, because the first time I ever saw Citizen Kane, I was in grade 7. You know, I was 13 years old. And was it grade 7 or was it grade 8? I was 13, 14 years old. And it kind of got to that point near the end of the year, of the school year, where class is pretty much wrapped up. And so the teacher just throws in some movies to kill the last couple of days.
Right.
And my history teacher threw on Citizen Kane. And Citizen Kane is a very cerebral movie. And I'd argue it is perhaps too cerebral to show to a 13 or 14-year-old kid. Because I was bored out of my mind. And it's one of those things where I'm sure if the first time I had seen it, if I had been older when I saw it for the first time, I might have been able to appreciate it more. But just as being 13, 14 years old and seeing it for the first time, I was like, God, this sucks!
Yeah, I was about the same age when I seen it the first time, and I had the same reaction. I rewatched it again about maybe 5 years ago, I want to say.
Okay.
I was bored one night, and AMC... no, this is more than 5 years ago, I think, because I don't think AMC does this anymore. I don't know. But AMC does this thing, or at least used to, where every year around the Oscars, they show, all these movies that had been, like, gotten Best Picture or, highly critically acclaimed, that kind of thing. And, of course, Citizen Kane was among them. And I'm thinking, all right, I have nothing better to do. The cat's teeth were flossed. All the scunge was cleaned out of the toilet. There was no trash to take out. So, I decided to watch this. And again, I found myself just kind of saying, okay, well, I'm not going to come out and say the movie is bad. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to say that. But the whole point here is not necessarily saying that these movies are bad, just that the hype just really does not justify what you get. Mm-hmm. And Citizen Kane, for me, just seems to kind of embody that. It's like, oh my God, it's the best movie of all time. And blah, 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 blah. No. At best, it's a competent, political movie, I guess.
Epic biography of a fictional character based off of a real person.
Yeah, at best, it's a competent movie. It is, but it's not awesome. It's not great.
I think a lot of the praise the Citizen Kane gets comes from the way that the story is told, because it really does track this character from basically the start of his life to the end of it. And you really start to see, and you really kind of see everything unfold. You see him go from an idealistic young man just starting out in the newspaper business to becoming this corrupt, morally bankrupt guy near the end of his life. So it does a good job sort of tracking that development. I think that's what a lot of people like about it. The big thing to me, and this is the plot hole of plot holes. Okay, so so basically the movie is just an excuse to tell you the life of this fictional character, Charles Foster Kane.
Right. Which they have to set up somehow.
They need to set up somehow, yeah. So they start the movie actually, spoilers for Citizen Kane. But, they start the movie, they start the movie, Charles Foster Kane is dying. He's on his deathbed at the start of the movie, and he dies. And his last word is Rosebud. And obviously this guy is, he's a millionaire, he's a media tycoon, really influential, really powerful, obscenely wealthy. And so when he dies, everyone's like, but what does his last word mean? Because it's just Rosebud. Well, what does it mean? And then the rest of the movie is them investigating, kind of going back through the life of Charles Foster Kane from beginning to end. And then the movie follows it from beginning to end. So this investigation into what his last word is the framing device for seeing his entire life unfold. And then, of course, at the end, we find out that Rosebud was his childhood sled back when he was growing up poor. And
which, by the way, is a fucking M. Night Shyamalan quality twist, if ever there was one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sorry, go on.
But obviously, then that's a lesson that, The sled he lost when he was a child was the most important thing to him, and all the wealth and power that he had accumulated meant nothing next to, like, his childhood innocence, and that's the moral of the story. But here's the thing. You could bring this up to any film snob who starts ragging on you about the plot points in, say, Transformers 4, the plot holes in Transformers 4.
Yeah.
Bring up Citizen Kane. That scene is actually, you can track how this scene plays out. Charles Foster Kane's on his deathbed. The nurse comes in to check on him. Then she leaves. When she leaves and is out of earshot, he whispers. He doesn't even loudly proclaim. He whispers, Rosebud, and dies. There is nobody in the room who could have known that he said Rosebud right before he died. And that is the plot point that the entire movie's narrative hinges upon.
Yeah.
But nobody was around for him to know that he said that.
Right.
The nurse couldn't have heard it because she was out of the room and he just whispered it.
Yeah, the one thing that the entire, like, framing mechanism of the movie depends upon is a plot hole wider than the fucking Grand Canyon.
Yeah, so next time people are like, when did Optimus Prime get rocket boots? You know what? Shut up. Citizen Kane sucks. Yeah. There you go.
Tips on winning any argument, courtesy of Bags.
Indeed.
And then call them a gay slur. Or Hitler.
That's Citizen Kane. I kind of want to rewatch it now because I honestly haven't seen it in years, and I'm wondering if seeing it when I'm older maybe will it, if not make me, if not, you know, I'm not saying I'll come out of thinking this is amazing, but maybe I'll just appreciate it more.
I wish we could do like a live, like us watching it and riffing on it live for the listeners.
We could as a bonus content. I mean, we already did that Flat Earth Society thing, so we could.
Well, I mean, it would be the entire length of the movie though, and you'd actually kind of like need to see the movie to hear what we're saying. Kind of give it like the MST3K treatment.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's not too hard. Citizen Kane, I don't imagine, is hard to come by.
No, it's not.
I don't know. That's an idea for down the line. Listeners, tell us if that's actually something you'd be interested in. But are there any other films out there that are just ungodly overrated that you just want to rant about?
The Godfather.
Oh, yes, God.
Now, I know for like a lot of our listeners, this one may be like, okay, well, they might have been partially on board with this for Citizen Kane, either through not having seen it or actually sharing the opinion. Now, no, the Godfather is actually one of those movies that when you talk to people who aren't really even film critics, like, oh yeah, I love that movie. I don't get it. I have tried to watch it. I've never finished watching it. I have tried no less than 4 times, and I cannot get more than, say, an hour and a half into it. And if you're going to tell me, oh, well, that's when it starts getting good. No. I am not going to invest an hour and a half of my life for something to start to get good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, Godfather is one of those films. I actually hadn't even seen it all the way. I actually hadn't seen it all the way through till about maybe 3-4 years ago. I was back home visiting my family, and my dad is like, hey, have you ever seen Godfather? Like, we were just talking about movies, and Godfather came up, and I'm like, I've never seen Godfather. Like, because honestly, I never had, and I wasn't actively avoiding it. It's just one of those things where it had never come up for me to see it in my life up till that point.
Right.
And he had said, oh, it's amazing. And he's like, we have it on DVD. When, you know, later tonight, we're going to watch Godfather. I'm like, all right, fine. Again, I've got nothing against seeing this movie. Might as well see what all the hype's about. And so I sat through the whole thing. I saw the entire movie. And there are elements to it that I like. Kind of the story of the main character. I'm gonna look this up because I don't want to butcher any Italian names. But Michael, the main guy, I think it's
Corleone.
Cologne, is it Coloni or
Corleone?
Corleone, yes, Michael Corleone. Main character. His story is interesting because he goes from basically he wants nothing to do with his family's business. He grows up in the mob as the son of the head of the mob, but he starts off, as an army officer. He wanted nothing to do with it, and then over the course of the movie, he finds himself getting dragged in, and he becomes more and more involved with the business until eventually he becomes the new head of the mob by the end of the movie. And it's a very cool transformation to sort of watch. The problem is that the rest of the movie, in my opinion, just doesn't really work. Look, I'm not expecting every movie to be a summer blockbuster. But the pacing of this film, it's just not
horrible
working for me.
Yeah, I mean, okay. Kind of in our defense on these things, we do watch things other than Michael Bay movies. we really do. And in spite of ourselves, we sometimes do exhibit faint flashes and glimmers of intelligence and even sentience, according to some people. But this movie, okay, I get the idea. I get where it would be appealing, but the way it was done for me, it's just so damned boring. And apologies to Mike's dad. I'm sorry. I just feel that way. Like you said, the pace, it has pacing issues. The plot does not feel, it needs a lot of tightening. There should always be something going on to where you're on the edge of your seat. And things don't have to be blowing up. People don't have to be getting fucked. There doesn't have to be tits and ass on the screen or robots holding giant death cannons to hold my interest, though it helps. But just have a tight, well-edited plot. And this didn't seem to have it. And the result was me sitting there, oh my God, I am so fucking sleepy. And I usually end up turning it off about an hour and a half to 2 hours into it and having nappy time. Mm-hmm. Which is something because I'm an insomniac. Hardcore. I'm regularly up for 24 hours at a time. Yeah, unless I watch fucking Godfather. Or Mad Men, but that's a whole other thing.
Yeah. It's maybe an overrated TV show.
Yeah, that would be an overrated TV show for the exact same reasons. There, I just covered Mad Men.
Yeah,
pretty much. And again, I'm not saying this movie is devoid of anything redeeming. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not calling it a bad movie. I'm calling it a movie that does not seem to deserve the hype and the praise heaped upon it.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. It's just, again, it's an interesting story wrapped in a film that's terribly paced.
Yeah.
And it's got some interesting characters, and it's got an interesting story, got some interesting characters, got some interesting concepts at play, but I don't know. It reminds me of sort of an Ernest Hemingway novel.
Yeah.
Okay. Ernest Hemingway is often considered one of the greatest writers of all time. But if you're really being objective about Ernest Hemingway, the dude needed an editor, hardcore, to maybe sit him down and say, Ernst, we could cut out, half of this shit.
I know the problem. Ernest Hemingway's, fairly famous saying, write drunk, edit sober. Mm-hmm. No, edit drunk, write drunk. Mm-hmm. Just be drunk. He was editing while sober and he was overthinking it.
But I mean, it's sort of the same thing in terms of Godfather. It needed someone to say, hey, we need to rework this and maybe tighten it up in some places.
I think a really good example of kind of what I'm saying about how for you and I, it doesn't have to be a pyrotechnic show to hold our interest. I think Alfred Hitchcock is just awesome. Mm-hmm. Rear Window which is also, a very praised movie, and I think this one deserves it because in terms of how the story is told, it is the exact opposite from The Godfather. everything is relevant. The whole thing, like takes place almost in one fucking room. You'd think you'd get bored seeing that, but you're not, because there's something always relevant and interesting happening. You're always, wondering what's going to happen next. You're always on the edge of your seat because the storytelling is very tight. The editing is good, and everything is presented to where you're not, seeing this guy who's in a wheelchair, wheeling off to the bathroom to go try to drop a deuce. Oh, I gotta lift myself out of the chair. You hear him fall. The chair falls over. Oh, God, it's on my face. There's none of that. You only see and hear what you need to see and hear. Mm-hmm. Whereas Godfather is just like, not.
No, indeed. Although I've actually never seen Rear Window, but I have seen the remake of Shia LaBeouf.
Disturbia is not bad. It's not as good as the original. I still like Disturbia, though. I mean, It's a good remake. I don't know why they called it Disturbia and just couldn't fucking call it Rear Window. But, I don't know,
Disturbia kind of... Because it's in suburbia, and it's disturbing.
I see what they did there.
I don't know, it sounds like a name someone came up with in marketing, and, they just kind of ran with it.
Probably. Yeah, it sounds like, it's got a very early 2000s kind of a sound to it. Mm-hmm.
And it came out at the tail end of the early 2000s, so I guess that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, now, my next two, you're probably not, I know you're not going to agree with the next one I'm going to say. Because I'm just going to say it, and I'm going to leave it. Because I've already had this rant a little bit, but this really fits under this topic for me at least.
Okay.
The Dark Knight.
No.
Again, I'm not saying that it's not a good movie. I'm saying that people suck this movie's dick and it doesn't deserve it.
I think it very much deserves it.
Well, you can keep on sucking. But I just like... And I think it was too long for starters. Again, it kind of feels... It doesn't suffer from the same editing issues as The Godfather. But it just feels like, I don't know, it feels like you're in for this very, very long experience. You're very much aware that you're sitting there watching this thing for almost 3 hours. I feel every minute I fucking feel. Mm-hmm. You shouldn't, for me, if a movie's done right, you don't feel that. Like, the Lord of the Rings trilogy. You don't really feel like you're sitting there watching a 3-hour movie, or at least I didn't. Mm-hmm. With The Dark Knight, I did. I have no issue with Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker. I thought it was fine. It was good. It was good for what they wanted to do with the movie. But again, I don't think it's, quote unquote, brilliant, masterful.
See, I
anything
would.
Like that.
See, I would, because, and this is sort of the thing I took out of it after seeing the movie, almost immediately after seeing it in theaters, and honestly, it still holds up to this day for me. That Heath Ledger in that movie made the simple act of walking down the street interesting.
Yeah.
Seeing him as the Joker just walk into a room was interesting.
No. Not for, this is one where we're just probably going to have to agree to disagree as usual. For me, it just wasn't. Again, I'm not saying the movie was bad. I'm honestly not. I'm just saying that, god damn, it was long.
But you see, I never felt the runtime, though, because the stuff of the Joker I found so interesting that it kind of made me forget how long the movie was.
The thing that amused me the most about The Dark Knight actually was not the movie itself. It's this picture I seen of someone handing Jack Nicholson a picture of Heath Ledger's Joker to sign. And he's just like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I love that image. I love that picture.
Another movie though, we'll leave The Dark Knight, and just kind of be like truce on that one, because him and I could bitch for the next 3 hours on that shit.
Mm-hmm.
I think you'll probably be on with me about this one if you've ever seen it. It's a Wonderful Life.
I'm familiar with the Tiny Toons parody.
Infinitely better than the actual movie itself. Fucking infinitely better. Any Tiny Toons parody is probably going to be better than the material that it's mimicking, just by nature of Tiny Toons being awesome. But, yeah, basically, the story is this guy who's like, I wish I was never born. And then this angel pops up and he's like, surprise, motherfucker, you weren't! And that's not a verbatim quote from the movie, by the way. But, so it then goes on to show, he wanders around, he sees everyone he knows living as if he had never existed.
And everyone's worse off because he never existed. That's the premise of it, right? It's like, look how...
Yeah, more or less, yeah.
Like, everyone out sucks because you didn't exist, so you've got to exist.
Right, yeah, exactly. That's pretty much what's going on with it. And the end of the movie is the most syrupy, nauseating thing ever to me. Then he's like, I want to live. I take it back. Okay, fine. You finally stopped your whining. Congratulations, fucktard. Then it shows him with his family, and this bell rings, and this little girl's like, every time a bell rings, an angel gets their wings. Oh, shut the fuck up, Tiny Timette. God, it's grating.
Yeah.
And I will call this one a bad movie. I just don't like it. It's just so cheesy.
Didn't it come out in the 30s, Lo?
Yes, it did.
See,
yeah. No, 1946, actually. 1946.
Still, 30s, 40s, I'm willing to give it a pass on that.
Fair enough. Though I've brought up to you name one here.
Overrated movies. Huh. Oh, see, this is the thing. Like, I know of them, but the way that my brain works sort of push them out of my mind. For example, if I'm buying movies on DVD, I usually don't go out of my way to buy movies I don't think are that great.
Right.
But okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Overrated movies. I'm gonna try to bring it back into the more of the geeky element of the show.
Well, I tried to do that with The Dark Knight, but you were unreasonable.
Okay. You want to talk about The Dark Knight? Let's go tit for tat. Tim Burton's 1989 Batman.
Okay, enlighten me. Because, I don't hear the same praise heaped on that movie that's heaped on The Dark Knight.
No, you don't. And the praise for pretty much any Batman before Batman Begins kind of went down drastically once the Nolan series took off. But anytime you hear people trash the earlier Batman movies, it's usually with the caveat of, except the first one, that one was still pretty good.
Yeah.
And I disagree. Because, okay. The big thing about, again, let's go back to the Joker.
Okay.
The thing about Heath Ledger as the Joker was that his character of the Joker, you couldn't recognize that as just Heath Ledger playing the Joker. It was Heath Ledger kind of creating this whole entire persona that he was sort of inhabiting. With Jack Nicholson's Joker, it's just Jack being Jack. And he just happens to be playing the Joker. But it's still very noticeable as Jack Nicholson.
It almost came across to me as Jack Nicholson's character from The Shining as the Joker. Which I was fine with. So now are you saying that you did not enjoy that movie?
It's not bad, but I definitely think over time it's become incredibly dated, and I think that the years have sort of exposed it a little.
I'll actually agree with you to a small extent on that. Yeah, it does show its age. The main thing that I did like about it was just the overall atmosphere of the movie. Mm-hmm. It's one of there's probably maybe at most 2 or 3 Tim Burton movies that don't make me want to punch someone in the face. Usually Tim Burton is the one I want to punch in the face.
Oh, the thing about this is that Tim Burton was just sort of starting in his career, so they didn't let him go all out the Tim Burton-ness of it.
Before he had Johnny Depp's number on speed dial.
Well, that's sort of the problem of Batman Returns. Was the sequel, Batman Returns, they basically let Tim Burton do whatever he wanted with it. Like, they gave him complete creative control in that one, and the overly Tim Burton-ness of it killed the franchise. Like, not killed the franchise, like, they made 2 more, but it sort of ruined what had been a very kind of restrained aesthetic where you had just enough Tim Burton-ness in it to get the sort of unsettled, creepy vibe, but not enough for it to become overbearing, and then suddenly It became overbearing.
Yeah, Batman Returns, I kind of liked it. It was kind of barfy, though. I wouldn't call it good. I wouldn't call it bad, either.
But the 1989 one, there's that... so there's the Joker again. I think it's just Nicholson being Nicholson. And Jack Nicholson's a very entertaining guy, so that's not necessarily bad, but I'm just saying, like, in terms of an actor portraying a character, he didn't so much play the Joker so much as he was himself, only kind of just sort of molded that around the character of the Joker. Another thing that I didn't like about it, again, and this involves the Joker, was how they retconned Batman's origins, and they're like, the Joker was the one who killed his parents.
See, I thought that was kind of cool, though.
See, I didn't like it. I did not like it, because, okay, the thing about Joe Chill being the character who's usually attributed as the one who killed Bruce's parents is that it just makes sense. Because Joe Chill isn't anyone special. He's not a supervillain. He doesn't have delusions of grandeur. Joe Chill is just a street thug. And I think that makes that story all the more powerful. That this whole thing set in motion with Batman began with just a street thug looking to hold up some rich people for some quick cash.
I'll counter that by saying in the 89 movie, Nicholson's character, the Joker when he was just Jack Napier, when he killed Wayne's parents, he was basically just a street thug. And I don't know, I thought that was kind of better in a way because it took out the randomness of just some random jackass killing his parents. And then at that point, it kind of turned the whole plot into, it's not just about Batman becoming Batman. It's about Batman fucking taking care of business, yo. Because this guy killed his parents and now he's got to die.
Well, see, here's the thing. I like the randomness of it. I like the randomness of Joe Chill because it's just this random incident that sets Batman off, that basically sets, the Batman story in motion. It wasn't, and yeah, okay, Jack Napier, when he killed Bruce Wayne's parents, might have been a street thug at the time. But we know that Napier had ambition. That is the first part of the Joker's plot in that movie is that he wants to take over the crime syndicate that he's a part of. But that's the thing. Joe Chill doesn't have those ambitions. He's just a guy who robs people in dark alleys. He doesn't want to become a criminal overlord. He's just a street thug in every sense of the word.
Well, he will never become my number one guy.
Probably not, no.
flaws.
But I don't know. I like, and that's another problem I have actually with the Gotham TV show. Kind of circling back to the discussion we had last week. It seems like one of the big plot points, at least for season 1 of Gotham, if it lasts a full season, because guess what? It's a speculative fiction show on Fox, and Firefly says hello. They tend to cancel those. So, if Gotham even reaches the end of season 1, but assuming it does, it seems like one of the big plot points is the mystery of who shot Thomas and Martha Wayne. And I'm like, no, this is suffering from the same problem that the 89 Batman film did. Like, just have it be Joe Chill. Just have it be some random asshole who, as fate would have it, he fucked over the wrong guy that night. And just have it be that. It doesn't, that's sort of the problem, it's sort of one of the problems I had with, the Star Wars prequels. In the Star Wars prequels, where they tried to tie a few ties to ground it in the same universe as the original trilogy is perfectly fine and understandable. But when they started bringing the droids, R2-D2 and C-3PO into it, it just became ridiculous because George Lucas is going out of his way to draw every connection he possibly can. And as a result, it just seems ridiculously contrived that every historical event that happens in this setting involves so few people and families. And it's the same thing here, where tying the Joker into Batman, the murder of Batman's family, or even just making the murder of Batman's parents, yet the murder of Batman's parents be anyone else other than just sort of this random street thug, kind of makes it even more contrived than it really needs to be. The idea of just this random act of violence sparking this crusade, I think, is a much better narrative than this, blood feud with the Joker that stretches back decades.
Well, thing is, though, having the Joker do it didn't take anything away from that. Wayne's parents were still killed simply for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Nothing about that changed. Mm-hmm. That aspect of things is still there. Mm-hmm. Nothing was removed by having, the Joker having killed, Wayne's parents, but something else was added on top of everything that existed previously.
It was added, yeah, but I don't think it needed to be added. That's my thing.
Fair enough. Things like that, when you get to that level, that's really subjective. Mm-hmm. That's just one of those things of,
Also, I think, especially in retrospect, where we have the bat suit from The Dark Knight, which has a more segmented armor look, like the molded plastic of Keaton's Batman suit just looks really bad. Like, okay, you see Christian Bale, kicking ass in what is essentially modified body armor.
Right.
And, it's like, yeah, you know what? For what he's doing, that outfit makes sense. And then you go back and watch the 89 Batman movie, and if you watch them in close proximity to one another, you watch Michael Keaton, and you're like, how the fuck is he moving?
He couldn't really. That's why that was like one of the things where he could not turn his head.
Well, yeah, no, because the whole thing was molded plastic. And so, Christian Bale, I think Christian Bale had head-turning problems in Batman Begins, but when he got his new suit in The Dark Knight, he could turn his head.
Yeah.
But, in fact, I think that was even a plot point in the movie where they say, I'd like to be able to turn my head. But Michael Keaton kind of had to do the full body turn anytime he wanted to look side to side.
Yeah, I actually, that flaw in the costume, to me, kind of, I don't know, it added a way to maybe it was just the cape or the way Keaton did it, I don't know. But as a result of that, the way he turned kind of added this interesting aspect to the character that just looked kind of cool when he did it.
Well,
I don't know.
It was the dramatic character turn paired with Danny Elfman's score that didn't suck. Well, this was I think the sort of beginning of the Danny Elfman Tim Burton relationship, and kind of like Tim Burton, Danny Elfman started off with promise before kind of devolving into a caricature of himself.
Yeah.
So, like, I actually like the Danny Elfman track from the first two Batman films. But, yeah, everything since then, it's just basically...
I think as a result of this conversation, we can agree on one thing, and this isn't even lumping a movie into an overrated list. This is lumping an entire director's body of work for the most part.
Tim Burton, yeah.
Tim Burton. Like, so many things that he does get such praise, and he's been going on for years.
Let's be real about Tim Burton, people. He hasn't had an original idea since Beetlejuice.
No, and I didn't even like that movie, to be honest with you.
You know what? I like the cartoon Beetlejuice more than the actual show. More than the movie.
I did too, with the caveat being that I did not like the movie at all, and I could tolerate the cartoon.
I kind of liked the cartoon, catching it on reruns when I was a kid. It was, it was fun. Like, I don't go out of my way to rewatch or anything, but it was perfectly acceptable. And then the movie, nah, blarg, nah. But if you look at what he's done since then, okay, he had that Planet of the Apes remake that was so bad that they had to reboot it after the reboot.
Did they really?
Well, yeah, because they had Tim Burton rebooted it, right? And then after that movie, you didn't see any sequels, and then they rebooted it again with Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Well, see, okay. Then that's why I didn't know that they rebooted it again, because with the Planet of the Apes sequels, like, they all had this weird, like, preface to them. And so I heard Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, okay. New sequel to this. I never followed that series. I never liked it. I hate movies about monkeys because I hate monkeys.
Greg's gonna be so disappointed.
They annoy the piss out of me. I can't stand them.
But yeah, no. The two most recent Planet of the Apes movies that are related have nothing to do with the Tim Burton movie. So Tim Burton comes in, does Planet of the Apes, and he sets it up as to be a franchise. There's definitely sequel fodder in that movie. They definitely planned for it to be a franchise, but it just got butchered to such a degree that it didn't happen.
I did see that first one, and I don't know what compelled me to watch it. Probably boredom. And I was exactly as impressed with it as I thought it would be. A, Tim Burton. B, monkeys equals B, crap fest.
It had Mark Wahlberg in it.
Plus C, Mark Wahlberg equals crap fast.
But he does Planet of the Apes, and that, is fucking destroyed. And then he goes on to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, dear God. Wasn't that, okay, to me, maybe this is just me. Mm-hmm. Johnny Depp's character in that film was Michael Jackson.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Yes, it was.
That was that was the feeling that I got from it. And you couldn't even say, oh, well, Michael Jackson's black. The fuck he was. He was exactly like the color that fucking Johnny Depp's face was painted in that fucking movie.
Well, yeah, that's another thing about Tim Burton movies. It's gotten to the point now where Tim Burton, most Tim Burton movies are just Johnny Depp painting his face white and acting like a weirdo.
Yeah. And I like Johnny Depp as an actor. He's a great character actor. He can do damn near anything.
He's actually quite good when he's not painting his face white and acting like a chode.
Right, exactly. Johnny Depp is an actor. I think he's fucking great. Mm-hmm. Johnny Depp making his obligatory appearance in the Tim Burton movie, not so much.
No. But okay, here's the thing. I know you disagree. I know you're not a fan of the original Chocolate Factory movie.
No.
I kind of like it because I like Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka. Because here's the thing about Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka. What?
Oh.
That's the character's name.
I know. I can't help it.
Okay, here's the thing here's the thing. Go back and watch that movie. Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka, with very little changes to his character, could be a Bond villain.
You made me spit up my beer.
James Bond in Candyman.
Oh my god. Oh my god, that is so horrible. I literally snorted beer out of my nose.
But if you look at it, Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka in that movie has a very sinister streak to him, but it's not overt. It's subtle. It's subtle. Like he almost kind of seems like a genius on the cusp of madness in that movie.
Yeah, he definitely seemed like a fucking sociopath.
But then, so you take that subtle, crazy genius performance that Gene Wilder does, and then you have Johnny Depp just play him like Michael Jackson on fucking crack cocaine.
Or as some would know it, Michael Jackson.
Yeah, and you're just like... And you're like, the fuck is going on here? And I understand that, especially when it comes to, actors kind of visiting a role that's been done before, especially if that role's iconic. And, like that movie or not, I would say that Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka is iconic.
I would agree with you. I think I would also consider that to be overrated. Mm-hmm. But I mean, if you're saying the two performances side by side to me, and you ask me which one offends me the least, I can say, I don't personally care for anything Gene Wilder's been in. Especially
Young Frankenstein was fucking amazing.
I seen it. I didn't care for it.
God, no.
Yeah, I know. Amy had me watch it, and I just didn't. It wasn't bad. I just don't care for Gene Wilder. I just don't care for Gene Wilder at all. Especially though when he's in combination with Richard Pryor. I can't stand Richard Pryor either. The funniest thing Richard Pryor ever did was fucking set himself on fire, as far as I'm concerned.
Wasn't he so high on
on
crack cocaine he thought he was literally invincible?
Yes. Actually, yes. That's I don't think that's exactly what happened, but that's close enough to where you could pretty much be like, yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. That's, but if you took the two performances side by side and said, hey, which one of these offends you the least? I would look at the Gene Wilder, interpretation and say, okay, well, even though I don't personally care for Gene Wilder, I can say that, yes, I could see where people would find this to be amusing, even though personally it creeps me the fuck out. And for some, that's the appeal.
To creep you out.
Right. No, I get it. But I went on the Small World ride in Disney World when I was fucking 3 years old. And I was never the same since. And that fucking movie reminds me too goddamn much of that ride.
Well, it does.
I never realized
it does have that boat ride, which is
I had a breakthrough. I never realized that. That's why I hate that fucking movie.
Yeah. Well, that boat ride is very Small World-esque.
Yeah.
He just takes you on the boat ride to hell in the middle of the whimsical family movie.
Yeah, no, fuck that shit, man. Fuck that. Man.
But yeah, I mean, and I guess Johnny Depp's Willy Wonka was supposed to be creepy too, but he was creepy in the annoying way. Whereas
he was creepy in like the Amber Alert kind of way.
Whereas Gene Wilder was creepy in the dude's got like a death trap full of sharpened candy canes way.
Right. I mean, you have one character which, as you said, could pretty easily be a Bond villain, and then you have another one who's the reason why we have fucking Megan's Law. And I mean, yes, are they both nefarious potentially? Yeah, but one of them is kind of like a cool kind of nefarious, whereas the other one, no, sir, you cannot touch my penis. And,
no, sir, you should not be allowed around children.
Yeah, no. I got the flyer in the mail about you.
Yeah, although interestingly enough, Tim Burton was not the first guy. Like, they had decided to remake Charlie and the Chocolate Factory prior to Tim Burton coming on. And before Tim Burton came on, of course, when Tim Burton came on, Johnny Depp came on. But before Tim Burton came on, they were discussing possibilities to play Willy Wonka. And one of the possibilities was Will Smith.
Oh, no, you did not just fucking eat all that candy.
No, I just want to say, oh, hell no!
Oh, hell no!
See, like the fat kid who falls into the chocolate river and gets sucked up into the tube? Oh, hell no!
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been a positive development. Because it's almost like you're talking about how, well, Jack Nicholson's Joker was just Jack Nicholson is the Joker. Uh-huh. Jack Nicholson is him with just whatever character on top of him in any movie that he's in, but he's cool enough to where people like it. Mm-hmm. Same thing with Will Smith. I mean, Will Smith is Will Smith.
Except in After Earth, where he decided to be incredibly boring.
Well, yeah, except for that, and God, no. Fuck that movie. But, you know, Will Smith is pretty much Will Smith in every movie he's in, and I think that would have been awesome. Yeah, just like he said, oh, hell no! I would have paid for the ticket just for that alone.
Yeah, that would have been hilarious, just like Will Smith as Willy Wonka, just being Will Smith.
Yeah, that would have been great. Get your ass out of that chocolate.
But yeah, and then, you know, he did, what was that movie he did with Johnny Depp, Tim Burton did? It was a remake of some 1970s sitcom with vampires.
Dark Shadows.
Was it Dark Shadows? Something else? Was it called something else?
No, it was Dark Shadows. Because I know this because my grandmother was actually a big fan of the original, and it was a soap opera. It was a fucking soap opera. Mm-hmm. From the 70s, about a fucking vampire, because the 70s. And, like, my mother, sometimes when we'd be at Kmart, because we didn't have a Walmart in the neighborhood yet, you know, we're talking like mid-80s here. After we got our VCR, she felt kind of guilty that, you know, her and I had all these movies and Grandma didn't have anything to watch. So she found some, like, VHS compilation tapes of, like, 4 or 5 episodes of Dark Shadows, and she got those for Grandma, and I watched them. I don't really remember much about it. I don't think it held my interest all that much. I don't recall it as being particularly offensive, but yes, that was what they remade, and they remade it into a comedy. Mm-hmm. Which the original series was not. Now, I don't think that there are any Dark Shadows purists out there to get enraged about this. Or if so, they don't know where they're at anymore. So, you know, any backlash on that was successfully avoided like a boss.
Well, the whole thing about it is that movie above any others convinced people that this whole Tim Burton, Johnny Depp thing needs a break.
And I actually did see that movie. I, oddly enough, did not find it to be offensive. Mm-hmm. I didn't like it, but it didn't, you know, make me want to shoot myself in the face either. I actually laughed a little bit at some parts of it. Mm-hmm. You know, it wasn't a complete waste of time. It just wasn't good. Of course, why would it be good?
But again, let's take a look at this, what we've talked about. Dark Shadows, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, Planet of the Apes. What do all of these have in common? These are ideas that Tim Burton did not come up with.
Yeah. And the one, and I know, guys, we've gone way off the reservation. This was a conceptual piece because it's a slow news week. But the one thing that fucking Tim Burton could have done and knocked out of the fucking park, the remake of 1984.
Yeah.
The one movie I want that useless fucking asshat to make. Even if Johnny Depp played Winston, which we all know he would have, I would have been fine with it. I would have been fine with it.
And I never got a spiral staircasey feel from reading 1984, so I'm not sure how that would have played out, but otherwise I agree.
Yeah, and of course, you know, Helena Bonham Carter as Julia.
Obviously those two things would have happened.
Right, and I would have been fine with it. All right, Tim, here you go. All I want you to do is just apply the way you see things to this movie, and it'll be fucking creepy as hell and awesome.
Yeah,
and we couldn't even have that because he had to go make fucking Frankenweenie.
Yeah. And now 1984 is not happening because they gave it to Tim Robbins instead, and then nobody wanted to fund a Tim Robbins movie.
The movie was then assigned to Tim Robbins, and he wanted to turn it into I guess, for lack of a better term, though I'm insulting the word satire, he wanted to turn it into a satire of the Bush administration because Tim Robbins, raging whatever you want to call him, And people are just like, no, we don't, this isn't something that's going to be marketable. It would have just been, too many, I think no matter which side of the aisle you're on, it would have been too heavy into political undertones, and it would have lost its feeling from the original book, which is the only actual book that has ever scared the shit out of me.
1984?
Yes. I'm not one to be scared by books. I mean, I grew up reading Poe and all this other shit, scary stuff. Stephen King, I was reading Stephen King when I was like in fucking 5th grade. And, books don't scare me. I'd never read a book that scared me until I read 1984. That book scared the shit out of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a very creepy book, in that regard, but yeah, I'm just not sure if Tim Burton's brand of creepiness is what can be applied to it.
Maybe not, but it would have had a very interesting and unique style, kind of like the way that I seen it in my head, sort of. Now, I did watch the 1984 movie from, 1984 with Unhurt, and it was okay. It was okay. It wasn't great.
Well, the problem with that movie is that it assumes you've read the book. Because, there's a lot of unexplained symbolism that they go into detail in that Orwell goes into detail with in the book.
Yeah.
And so if you've read the book, you see the movie, and you're like, oh, I know what that is and what it means. But they don't explain it in the movie. So in the movie, you're just like, the fuck is this if you've never read the book?
Yeah, if you haven't read the book, that movie is going to come across like some fucking indie movie trying for some kind of abstract shit and symbolism and shit. But they're actually, everything that you see in that movie is explained in the book. It's really not nonsensical if you've read the book. But yeah, you're right. If you haven't, then you're just like, what the hell is this? Mm-hmm. My God, what are these people doing?
Indeed. So yeah, Tim Burton, overrated, definitely overrated director. Alice in Wonderland is another one he did too, which was absolutely ass.
It didn't offend, I say this a lot, it didn't offend me.
It offended me. It offended me big time.
There was one aspect of that movie that I actually liked that kept it from being an unwashed ass of a movie to me. And it was the Mad Hatter just being crazy and Scottish.
See,
I thought that was cool.
The whole thing just bugged me. Like, they gave the Mad Hatter sort of like this PTSD kind of thing. I'm like, what the fuck is going on here?
PTSD.
Well, they did.
I know. No, I get you. That's why I'm laughing, because when you say it, I realize, yeah, that's Charlie's in the bushes, man. But they're here for us.
And I don't know. Maybe it's something in the original book, because I never read the original Alice in Wonderland books.
Me neither.
So maybe there's something lost in there that I didn't get, but I don't recall those books having much of a plot in the way of politics. But this tried to turn it into some sort of people's revolution, and you had intrigue with the queen. And I'm like, this is not something that I remember being a thing that Alice in Wonderland did.
Okay, as it's been told to me, the original Alice in Wonderland was in fact meant as political satire. As a parody of whatever monarch was on the throne at the time. I forget what, who, why. But that is like the roots of the idea. Mm-hmm. Not, and I hated the Disney version. I really don't like any of those older classic Disney cartoons. Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't even like them when I was a kid. I thought, frankly, Bambi's mother was a whore and she had it coming.
God.
And tasty venison. But I never really cared for any of those. And when I seen this movie in contrast to the original Disney cartoon, I liked the newer take better in spite of Tim Burton and everything that brings with it.
I don't know. It just seemed like to me it seemed like a parody of Tim Burton movies. Like, Tim Burton has become a self-parody at this point.
Well, yeah, I mean, he is. And that's like almost at this point the saving grace if there is to be one of any of his movies, where if you watch one and you're like, yeah, well, it's Tim Burton, what do you expect? It's I don't know. He pretty much has devolved into self-parody. And he hasn't really brought out anything recently, has he?
No,
I'm trying to think. I can't remember anything. I think was maybe Dark Shadows his last movie, I think, maybe?
I think so. Yeah.
Maybe that explains everything, right?
But, there's one more thing I want to talk about, before we wrap this show up. And that is, WWE.
And their network.
Well, kind of. It has to do with the network. We've talked about the network's financial, flailings as it, as Vince McMahon desperately tries to get people to care. But I want to talk a bit about the network in relation, not to the financial side of WWE, but in relation to the WWE product. Because this is something that was made very apparent to me with the last pay-per-view, Night of Champions. Night of Champions was the first pay-per-view after the initial subscription service ran out. So if you subscribed back when it was launched, then SummerSlam was the last pay-per-view on that list, and Night of Champions would have been the first one on the next billing cycle. So they were trying to build up Night of Champions as sort of this must-see show. One of the matches they had, Seth Rollins versus Roman Reigns, odd series of events. They showed it for free on the Raw before the show. And then they hyped that it was going to happen again at the pay-per-view, but then Roman Reigns came down and had to be hospitalized, so that match was canceled. And I'm not going to complain. I'm not going to bitch about that. I'm not going. WWE didn't decide that Roman Reigns, had a hernia that needed to be removed. So I'm not gonna, a match that that was advertised didn't happen, but that was beyond WWE's control. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is the main event. The main event was going to be John Cena rematch against Brock Lesnar for the WWE title, and it ends in a DQ finish when Seth Rollins attempts to cash in his Money in the Bank contract and knock out both John Cena and Brock Lesnar. Here's the thing about that. This is a world title match on a pay-per-view, and it ends in a disqualification. That is bullshit.
So basically you have kind of like this weird inverse sort of thing where the shit that should be on the pay-per-view is on Raw, and the shit that should be on Raw has now been moved to the pay-per-view.
Well, kind of, but here's the thing. I don't think they see a difference between Raw and pay-per-view anymore, because all throughout this show, all throughout Night of Champions, they kept saying, they basically called anyone who watched the show via traditional pay-per-view an idiot. They kept saying, if you're watching this on the network, you paid $9.99. But if you watch this on pay-per-view, you paid $54.99. And they're like, what are you? You paid $55 for this, you fucking idiot? But that's my point. In that they're calling you an idiot for paying $55 for it, because they've essentially written off, they knew that by announcing the network the way they did, they're basically going to alienate all of their pay-per-view providers. And they knew that by doing that, they've come out and said as much, that they expect the pay-per-view business model to be dead by mid-2015. The pay-per-view business model is out the window. So, they're not treating the pay-per-views now like pay-per-views. Because in their mind, it's like, okay, 10 years ago, pay-per-view costs between $40 and $60. They were going to make it worth $40 or $60. But now, in their minds, the show's only worth $9.99. So they're only so they're like, hey, this is a show that's worth $10, so it's going to be a show that's worth $10. And that's why you get shit like a DQ finish to a world title match on a pay-per-view. Because in their mind, it's like, hey, this is pretty much just a glorified episode of Raw. You know, and if you paid $55 for this, you're an idiot. I mean, they pretty much came out and said, if you paid $55 for this shit, you're an idiot.
Yeah, and that's... I'm going to go out on a very tenuous limb. I don't think that's good business.
Well, no. I mean, that's the thing, is that they've cannibalized the pay-per-view market, because if their whole if the network kills the pay-per-view market to the point where it's no longer a significant source of profit, but the network doesn't make up that profit in subscribers, which it doesn't appear to be, then business-wise, that's just fucked up. Like, they've cannibalized their own revenue stream and they haven't replaced it with anything. But just from a fan's perspective, it's like, they've pretty much said, the pay-per-view era is over. Pay-per-views as you know them don't exist anymore. These aren't $55 shows where we have to provide $55 worth of entertainment anymore. We're only going to provide $9.99 worth of entertainment, and if you paid $55 for it, you're a fucking moron.
Yeah, and if you did pay $55 for that, then you basically got fucked, and they pretty much told you as much.
Yep. Indeed. So, you know, I'm not going to go on a network rant again. I just wanted to say something. That's something that became very apparent after Night of Champions, where the world title match ended in a DQ. Because, I mean, that's the kind of stuff you do on Raw to build up to the pay-per-view, where the match ends in a DQ, and then you say, no, we're doing it for real at the pay-per-view. I mean, that's generally how the business works, but now it's gotten to the point where there are no more pay-per-views. They're just glorified episodes of Raw that happen once a month on Sundays. So, because it's only really worth $9.99 now, you're not gonna get your $55 worth of entertainment, and they're telling you as much and they're telling you as much during the show. So, that's just what I wanted to talk about, sort of the downside to the in-ring product that we're getting. And, that's disappointed. Their next one is Hell in a Cell, which should at least be entertaining in some respect, because it will have at least one Hell in a Cell match, and those are always pretty brutal at least, so that should be fun. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about that apparently they're flat out telling you, if you paid $55 for this garbage, then you're an idiot.
That's just kind of, again, like, you know, they're basically cannibalizing themselves at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So I know it's become available in Canada. Have you subscribed yet?
No, because the Canadian version of the network is terrible.
What's the difference?
Okay. In the United States, if you get the network, you can access it from a smartphone, from a tablet, from a computer, from your TV, via devices such as a PS3, a PS4, Xbox 360, Xbox One. I mean, and if you access it, anywhere you access it, though, it's the same thing. It's basically got every WWF, WWE, WCW, ECW pay-per-view. Tons of archive footage. They're constantly uploading new episodes of Raw, SmackDown, WCW Nitro, WCW Thunder. Constantly uploading all of these old episodes, all of this old content. Plus you get some of the original content. Most WWE original content is garbage, but there are a few good original content ideas, like the Legends of Wrestling roundtable discussions, if you're really into wrestling history, are really fun to watch, that sort of thing. And then, of course, you get the pay-per-views, for, you know, pretty cheaply, for, $9.99 in the United States. You get $9.99 pay-per-views a month. Plus, you get the, pre- and post-game shows that they produce on the network for the Raws and the pay-per-views, so if you're into that sort of thing, you can get that. all in all, the network in the United States, as much as it's been sort of this financial millstone around the company's neck, is, if you're a wrestling fan, a fantastic deal. In Canada, we don't get that. In Canada, it's not something I can access from the computer. It's not something I can access on my phone. It's not something I can access through my PS3. I can only access the WWE network if I subscribe. It's a regular on-demand cable channel, like HBO, for example. It's something that I can only get through Rogers. Thankfully, I have Rogers cable, so I can get it. But if you don't have Rogers cable in Canada, you're screwed, which is particularly concerning because Rogers cable doesn't really have much of a presence west of Ontario in Canada. So that's an issue. Rogers is mostly an Ontario-based company. I think they have a presence in Quebec as well, maybe throughout the Maritimes, but it's mostly Ontario. So if you're a Canadian and you don't have Rogers, then you don't have the network. And if you do have Rogers, it's only available via cable. And again, you don't get everything that the American network has. In the Rogers version of the network, you get the pay-per-views, and you get some, not all, but some of the original programming. You don't get the unlimited access to the archive footage that you do in the United States. You know, if I had a working version of the American network, I could pop on right now and watch any WCW pay-per-view from their history that I wanted to watch without a problem. In the Rogers version of the network for Canada, it would be whatever they feel like offering at the time. So, I mean, part of the appeal of the network is for $9.99, you basically get access to all of these pay-per-views and all of these shows in the past. You don't even get that on Rogers. And on Rogers, it's not even $9.99. It's $11.99. So now I'm paying $2 extra for less content. And that's versatility, because it's only available via cable box, and it's not available anywhere else. So the Canadian version of the network is garbage. So
gotcha.
No, I haven't gotten it.
Oh, I mean, given that, I can't say as I blame you, and especially since you have to pay $2 more for the privilege. $9.99, my ass!
I mean, it's sort of one of those things where, I guess at the same time, in terms of a pay-per-view value proposition, it's still worth it, because $11.99 a month for a pay-per-view, you know, is still better quality than $55 a month, especially if they're not going to produce $55 quality pay-per-views anymore, than $11.99, even with Rogers' half-assed version of the network still seems like a deal. But yeah, the Canadian version of the network is terrible. And is just once again another example of why Rogers Communications is just absolutely evil.
Well, I mean, they own almost all the things.
Yeah, they do. They really do. But I think that's going to do it for this week, lest we get on any more of a rant. So, this has been episode 34, basically a Geek Show. You can catch us on iTunes, on YouTube, Spreaker, Stitcher, on Twitter at A Geek Show. Send us an email at basicallygeekshow at gmail.com. And all of that good stuff. Catch us at sportslogos.net, the forums there, TFW 2005, under Transformers video discussion. Catch us at forums.taijutsu.org. For Jack, this is Mike, signing off.
Good night, ladies and gentlemen.